Although it was widely rumored Khomeini was suffering from cancer, the Ayatollah died with no clear successor to run the country. And the country's political experts will convene after his funeral to discuss the future leadership of Iran. Khomeini will be buried on Monday. CNN's Tiananmen has more on the life of the Ayatollah Khomeini.
The Ayatollah Khomeini first appeared on the international stage in 1978 when he arrived in France, the last stop of a long exile that began in the early 60s, when the Shah expelled him for criticizing his regime. By January of 1979, the Shah had fallen. 2 weeks later, after a 16-year exile, Khomeini returned triumphant to his homeland and set himself up as the head of the world's first Islamic Republic. On the international front, Khomeini began a fierce campaign against the West, particularly the United States, which he called the Great Satan, blaming it, he said, for infecting Iran with corrupt Western values. In November 1979, matters came to a head when Islamic extremists stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. They held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. Beirut, October 1983. More than 200 U.S. servicemen were killed when a car bomb blew up their Marine headquarters. Another car bomb at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut took 17 more American lives, and there were more bombs and more deaths in European capitals as well. Intelligence sources blame Islamic fundamentalists, directed by Iran, for these attacks. From September 1980, Iran was at war with its Arab neighbor Iraq for 8 years. It was the bloodiest trench warfare since World War I, with hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides. Khomeini vowed to fight on until his enemy, the president of Iraq, was forced from office. Isolated internationally and desperate for weapons, Iran entered an arms deal with its old enemy, the United States. That ended up as the Iran-Contra scandal, dealing the Reagan administration a powerful political blow. But fully a decade after Khomeini took power, his brand of Islamic revolution has not spread beyond Iran. Unable to win the Iran-Iraq war, Khomeini finally agreed to accept a ceasefire in July 1988, although he called that worse than swallowing poison. Khomeini held the Iranian people's interest through his own force of personality and a series of crises, from the hostages to the war to the Salman Rushdie affair. It unified the people around a common cause and kept them demonstrating in the streets. He was larger than life, even immortalized as Time magazine's Man of the Year. It remains to be seen how the post-Khomeini era will survive the loss of that cult of personality. Christiane Amanpour, CNN.
Came to power 11 years ago. But his death leaves a huge leadership vacuum. Many diplomats believe Khomeini's son will attempt to assume the leadership of the country. They say he's most likely to be accepted by all of the factions if a violent power struggle is to be avoided. And the son of Iran's former leader, the Shah, lives in the United States. Reza Pahlavi predicts a violent period is in store.
And the unavoidable conflict of interest and conflict among various people who would have a claim to power, we are certain to see not a smooth transition at all. And it is very likely that the situation that we see today in Iran will have a great chance to deteriorate even further.
Former Iranian President Bani Sadr says it's possible Iran could move towards democracy now that Khomeini is dead. And Bani Sadr says he hopes to soon return to Iran himself. In the United States, 2 of the 52 former Iranian hostages had harsh words for Khomeini. Barry Rosen says Khomeini's death ends part of Iran's nightmare. And Kevin Hermaning told CNN the Ayatollah's death is a chance for Iran to come back in.